Good morning, Apo. Good morning, brothers. I and Brother Victor are going to report about the 1971 Synod. But before that, let us see how, how the Synod of Bishops began and what is the meaning of Synod and what is the role of the Synod of Bishops. First, how the Synod of Bishops began. Pope Paul VI established the Synod of Bishops in 1965. The Second Vatican Council had just concluded, motivated by the experience of the Council itself. Paul VI desired to permanently establish a Council of Bishops with the aim of providing for a continuance after the Council of the great abundance of benefits that we have seen so happy to see flow to the Christian people during the time of the Council as a result of our close collaboration with the bishops. What is Synod? Synod came from the Greek word synodos, which means assembly. In the Christian Church, a local or provincial assembly of bishops and other church officials meeting to resolve questions of discipline or administration. The earliest synods can be traced to meetings held by bishops from various regions in the middle of the 2nd century. Such synods have convened through the history of Christianity. A synod of bishops from the worldwide Roman Catholic Church meets in Rome at regular, infrequent intervals for the purpose of discussing matters of vital church interest in an advisory capacity to the Pope. Next is, what is the role of the Synod of Bishops? In the words of Pope Francis, the Synod of Bishops is a body that manifests the solicitude of the College of Bishops for the needs of the people of God and for communion among churches. The Synod is a means of gathering information on each particular theme from the local churches. It provides counsel to the Roman Pontiff in the Synodal Assembly. Pope Francis, repeating what his predecessor Pope Paul VI said, stated that Synod has a consultative role, offering information and counsel to the Roman Pontiff on various ecclesial questions under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Furthermore, the role of the Synod of Bishops is primarily that of listening to the people of God. The Synod, therefore, is the suitable instrument to give voice to the entire people of God. So that is an overview how the Synod has been established. Now let us proceed to our main report, which is all about the 1971 Synod. And the title of this Synod is Justice in the World. So in the title alone, we can see or we can draw an idea here that there is this urgency of addressing injustices in the world. In fact, after Pope Paul VI issued the Octogesima Advenience, the question of social justice came to the fore again in Rome. The occasion was the Synod of Bishops that took place there in 1971. Lately that year, the Synod of Bishops, having met in Rome, issued a document titled Justice in the World. Thus, it's one of the most important statements on social justice ever issued by Rome. The Synod brought together all bishops from all churches all over the world, leaders encouraged by the renewal initiated at Vatican II. people who were ready now to take bold steps in the area of relationship between church and the world. In this synod, church leaders from the different continents had the opportunity to engage in formal dialogue, which is other and which members of the Vatican Curia on the theme of justice. The inspiration of this synod is from the directives of Medellin. Thus, this synod marked a major steps in the efforts of the Catholic Church to come to terms with this justice in the modern world. The most important thing about this document is that it was issued by the gathering of bishops themselves. Thus, it's sharp contrast to what happened at all the later synods. In subsequent synod, the bishops left it to the Pope to issue sometimes later a document based on whatever part of the deliberation were accepted to the Vatican. So this is unusual way of releasing this kind of document, because the usual way is they just leave to the Pope the decisions, and he will be the one to make the documents. But now this is unusual because just right after the issuance of the Octogesima Advenience, just a few months, here comes the synod titled Justice in the World. So here, as I said a while ago, that there is this urgency of addressing the injustices in the world, because the purpose of this gathering is scrutinizing the signs of the time. So they believe, and they are strongly believe that through the document of Medellin, the Medellin document, I should say, so they can able to see or read the sign of times, that there is a continuous injustices happening with that based on that document. So now let us go over with the process of this document. The document is important not only for its content, but also because of the process used to produce it. Thus, the story drafting this church document something interested among historians. In the case of this document, the story of its composition is significant for the future as well as for the past, partly because this synod had been seen by many as a way of putting into the practice of the most important advances made by the Vatican Council of the 1960s, namely the idea of collegiality. So, which means that the authority and leadership in the church are not only vested in the Pope, but are joint responsibility of the Pope and the bishop. So there is the so-called collaboration. So it is not only for the Pope, not only the Pope who has the authority to make this document, but for all church leaders in the world. The reason why the process adopted leading up to and during the synod is significant. It is because of a particular good example of close cooperation between bishops who had formal or institutional authority, theologians and other scholars who had authority of expertise in their different fields, and also people who had authority that comes from practical experience. The actual text owed by a few key people working in the Pontifical Commission for Justice and Peace. Hence, this command had been established by Pope Paul VI in 1967, and by 1971, it was at the height of its power. Thus, it becomes the focus of Rome for fresh approaches and deep commitment on social justice questions. So, in drafting this document, there are also prominent persons, theologians who contributed in this document, especially in the drafting. And first here is we have Philip Land. Philip Land was a particularly influential member of the commission at the time. He was described as an activist because of his involvement in the work of the Pontifical Commission and also his involvement in the dialogue with World Council of Churches. So aside from Philip Land, we have also two theologians who also participated in the drafting of this document. We have here Vincent Cosmao and a French Dominican, and also Juan Alfaro SJ from Gregorian University in Rome, and also another a lady. He's a influential consultant in the name of Barbara Ward. She not only drafted the background material, but she also gave an address to the bishops, being the first woman to do so. Hence, the clarity and realism of document, justice in the world. Hence, the clarity and realism of document, justice the word, is not unlike that found in the Medellin documents. The approaches of these documents is adopted at Medellin. So, just the approach, they just adapted it. They only base it from the document of Medellin. A genuine attempt is made to begin from the real situation in the world, but in order to discern there the sign of times, the specific ways in which God is speaking to this world and calling people to respond. So based on the approach in the Medellin document, they found out that there is this structural injustice and misdevelopment. And one of the most significant points in the document in the emphasis of structural injustice. So this is described, it says in the Justice in the World, number 3, is described in tense terms as a network of domination, oppression, and abuses, an international system of domination. Justice in the World, number 13. That this use of terms indicates that those who drafted the document and the Synod participants who adopted it had accepted the need for the value of structural assist of society. So it means they need to reevaluate or restructure the system made by this country, especially there is this vast economic growth. And as we all know, the first world countries are are can we say they are very powerful, and they can do what they want because uh, they know that they can do they can do anything uh, to uh, the people. And for example to the for example for the laborers, they are not able to give the due salary, and so on. Hence, the documents do not oppose personal conversion to structural reform, nor does it merely juxtapose the two. Rather, it indicates how the former is conditioned by the latter, for it speaks of the obstacles which social structure places in the way of conversion of hearts. As just is the word number 16. So, many bishops at the Synod spoke out strongly about structural injustice at the international level. Uh, so ito yung mga hinaing ng mga obispo sa lahat, all over the world, that they that there is this structural injustice, especially in the international level. So hence the document reflects their views. It does not hesitate to say that the conditions left by the colonial domination of the past may evolve into a new form of colonialism, in which the developing nations will be the victims of the interplay of international economic forces, as Justice of the World number 16 stated. Thus, the outspoken linking of past imperialism with present structural injustice in the international economic order is much stronger than the position adopted by Pope Paul VI about decolonialism and neo-colonialism in Populorum Progresso. So it says that there is the big chances that yung dati the past, the colonial domination of the past may continue again, may evolve and create a new form of colonialism. So that is ito yung nakikita nila na pwedeng mangyari. Likewise, the same sentence in which the Synod document speaks of new form of colonialism, it insists that this danger can be avoided only by liberation. So, hence the word liberation is used in a positive sense, in a way that seems to be definite advance on the usage of Pope Paul VI in the Octogesima Advenience. Leaders, including church leaders, still believe that the way to overcome poverty was through development. Thus, the Synod phrase, liberation through development, represents an attempt to take account to this different situation and outlook. So, very clear that the Synod phrase is liberation through development. It means that when there is development, it liberates the people. Na ibig sabihin nito na kung may development ay nakakatulong sa mga tao, hindi ito nakakasira sa kanilang hanap buhay o sa kanilang pagkatao kung meron man itong development. Thus, following Popul VI on his Populorum Progressio, the document puts forward a broad experiential account of the nature of development, that it is significant that in doing so, it uses language of human rights. The rights to development must be seen as a dynamic interpenetration of all the fundamental human rights on which the aspiration of individual and nations are based on justice in the word number 15. So it's very clear that when there is development, there should not, dapat hindi naapakan ang karapatan ng tao, kundi ito ay nakakatulong para maiangat or para mas maprotektahan ang kanilang karapatan. However, authors of this document were all well aware of the myths and illusions associated with the concepts of development. They interested on the need to get rid of those myths and false convictions which have up to now gone with a thought pattern subject to a kind of deterministic and automatic notion of progress. So, the document wants us to have a clear understanding about what do you mean by the notion of automatic notion of progress. One of the most succinct and striking parts of the document is where the bishops point out that the hope has been in vain, the poverty would be overcome through development. In the last 25 years, a hope has spread through the human race. The economic growth would bring about such a quantity of goods that would be possible to feed the hungry, at least with the crumbs falling from the table, but this has proved as vain hope in underdeveloped areas and pockets of poverty in a wealthier areas. So, wala na yung pag-asa na tao, ang pag-asa ng tao na makakaangat, most especially sa kagagawan ng mga mayayaman na lugar or those wealthier countries. They don't even think for the lower class. They only think of their personal interests. They don't mind kahit ano na yung nangyayari sa mga nasa ibaba. Okay. Next is, let us move on to the environment and what happened about the environment. The environment cost of the benefits are so heavy that is simply not possible for all parts of the world to have a kind of development that has occurred in the wealthy countries. Hence, the demand of resources and energy by the richer nations, whether capitalist or socialist, and such are the effects of dumping by them in the atmosphere and the sea, and that irreparable damage would be done to the essential elements of life on earth, such as air and water, their high rates of consumption and pollution, which are constantly in increase, were extended to the whole of humankind. That is justice, the word number 11. So it says in the document, when there is this fast economic growth, the environment also affected, and people also will suffer, especially those areas which are not which are undeveloped. thus recognize that what happened called development is available only in a limited number of countries, is in effect to accept that it's not true development, but all rather in a kind of exploitation. One of the most remarkable and admirable features of the Synod document is the emphasis of environmental issue. So long before this had become a major theme for many governments, the document goes to make the following strong statement: those who are already rich are bound to accept a less material way of life with less waste, in order to avoid destruction of the heritage which they are obliged by absolute justice to share with all other members of the human race. So, we have already know that common problem is about the environmental issue, the use of our environment, the improper use of our environment. In this context, it is interesting to see two reasons why the Synod document insisted on the importance of a certain sparingness by the church people in the use of temporal possessions, just as the word number 47, and of an examine of conscience in regard to lifestyle. Thus, it maintains the importance of fragility in order to be in solidarity with the poor and for ecological reasons. Therefore, the document was ahead of its time in seeing the inseparable link between an option for the poor and option of the earth. Thus, the Synod document takes so seriously in this issue of these limits to growth, show that in speaking of liberation through development, the bishops do not imagine the poverty in the world to be overcome simply by rapid economic growth. Therefore, the notion of liberation through development needs then to be complemented by that of development through liberation. So, sinasabi dito na ang pagpuna or ng kahirapan ay hindi lang gagawa sa fast economic growth, kundi there must be this thinking or idea or notion of liberation through development needs then to be complemented by that of development through liberation. Ang ibig sabihin nito na kung may pagbabago, ito ay nakakatulong o nakapagbibigay ng mabuting karapatan ng mga tao o nakapagbibigay ito ng mabuting resulta ng kanilang pamumuhay, or it gives them the right freedom for life. Yeah. Right freedom for life. And with this document, they can able also see the root of this problem, the injustices, the structural injustices and misdevelopment, and the environment. So So according to Justice the Word, one central issue lies at the heart of structural injustice of today's world is lack of participating by people in determining their own destiny. So sabi dito ang kosa o yung root ng problema sa structural justice is because of lack of participation, yung wala tayong contribution or wala tayong pakialam sa nangyayari sa buhay ng bawat isa. Wala tayong pakialaman na kahit ito ay nahihirapan na nakikita natin naghihirap, na wala tayong pakialam, nagdededmahan tayo. What is important is there is this economic growth, no matter what, kahit sino ang masagasahan, wala tayong pakialam. Thus, the new industrial and technological order favors the concentration of wealth, power, and decision-making in the hands of small public or private group. Justice the World number 9. The kind of positive action required to reverse this inherent tendency of the system, it's not being taken, and the result is marginalization of mass people. Justice the World number 9 and 10. Thus, to be in marginal situation is not simply to be economically deprived, but more basically deprived of the political power to change one's situation. Thus, the document speaks of developing peoples taking their future into their own hand. In doing so, it emphasizes that not only the more objective aspects of development, but also the subjective aspect, namely the awareness of people of their own dignity and the right to the principal authors of their own destiny. So, therefore, here it's important that we have to be aware of our in our own dignity in life and our own right, our own right to life, our own right in our own destiny. However, the Synod document says we see in the world a set of injustices which constitute the nucleus of today's problem. To solve them, concerned people, including churches leaders, must take a new functions and new duties. So this is a challenge for us as a church, as leaders, priests, all churches leaders are encouraged to do something to fight for the rights of the people who are in oppression, who are in domination, and so on. So, Brother Victor will continue our report. Thank you.